The man who got life in prison for stealing a slice of pizza. This sounds like a joke, but it's 100% real. In 1995, Jerry Dewayne Williams was hungry and broke in Los Angeles. He walked past a group of kids eating pizza on the beach, and in a moment of desperation, he grabbed a single slice of pepperoni pizza from one of them and ran away. One slice of pizza, worth about $2. Jerry was arrested and charged with petty theft. Under normal circumstances, he might have faced a small fine or maybe a few days in jail, but Jerry had a criminal history, previous convictions for robbery and drug possession. And California had just passed the 3 strikes law, which meant that people with multiple felony convictions could be sentenced to life in prison for even minor offenses if it was their 3rd strike. Jerry Williams was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for stealing a $2 slice of pizza. The case became a national controversy and a symbol of how harsh mandatory sentencing laws could be. Jerry served several years before his sentence was eventually reduced, but the fact remains, he went to prison for taking a single slice of pizza from a kid on the beach. Number 4. 36 years in prison for stealing $50 from a bakery. In 1983, Alvin Kennard walked into a bakery in Alabama and stole $50.75 from the cash register. It was a simple robbery, no weapon, no violence, just a desperate man taking money he needed. Alvin was caught almost immediately and arrested. Under Alabama law at the time, because Alvin had 3 prior felony convictions, all non-violent property crimes, he was sentenced under the state's habitual offender law. The judge gave him life in prison without parole for stealing less than $51 from a bakery. Alvin Kennard spent 36 years in prison for that $50.75. He was incarcerated from age 22 to age 58, missing his entire adult life. No marriage, no children, no career, no freedom. All for a bakery robbery that lasted about 2 minutes. In 2019, Alvin's case was reviewed, and a judge finally reduced his sentence, allowing him to be released. Alvin walked out of prison at 58 years old, having served over 3 decades for stealing the equivalent of what many people spend on lunch. The case highlighted how Alabama's harsh sentencing laws were destroying lives over relatively minor crimes, and it sparked calls for criminal justice reform across the state. Number 3. 30 years facing for stealing. A 52-cent donut, Scott Masters was homeless and hungry in Farmington, Missouri in 2007. He walked into a Country Mart convenience store, saw a donut, and made a decision that would nearly cost him 3 decades of his life. Scott slipped a single donut, worth exactly 52 cents, into his sweatshirt and tried to walk out without paying. Store employees saw him and called the police. Scott was arrested for theft. But here's where it gets absurd. Because Scott had prior convictions for robbery, prosecutors charged him with felony second-degree robbery instead of simple theft. The charge carried a potential sentence of 5 to 30 years in prison for a 52-cent donut. Scott Masters faced up to 30 years in prison for stealing a donut worth less than the cost of a postage stamp. The case made national news, with people across America outraged that a hungry homeless man could face decades in prison for taking a single pastry. Eventually, public pressure and media attention led prosecutors to reduce the charges, and Scott received a much lighter sentence. But the fact that he was ever charged with a crime carrying 30 years for a 52-cent donut shows how broken the justice system can be. If you're laughing at how ridiculous these cases are, make sure you smash that like button. Subscribe to Echoes of Confession with notifications on, and comment below where you're watching from. Missouri, Alabama, California, Florida. We want to hear from all 50 states. These cases get even more absurd. Number 2. The woman who went to jail for overdue library books. In 2019, Melinda Sanders Jones from East Texas received a notice that she had overdue library books. She'd checked out the Chronicles of Narnia series and some other books from the public library, and she'd forgotten to return them. Most people would just pay the late fee and move on with their lives. But in Texas, failing to return library books can be classified as theft of government property, which is a misdemeanor criminal offense. Melinda ignored the notices because she didn't think they were serious. She figured it was just library fines, not a legal matter. But the local district attorney's office decided to press charges, and a warrant was issued for her arrest. Melinda Sanders Jones was arrested and put in jail for overdue library books. She was held on a $200 bond and spent a night behind bars before her family could bail her out. For books, library books, about a fictional lion and talking animals. The story went viral, with people across America expressing disbelief that someone could be arrested and jailed for something as trivial as not returning library books on time. Critics pointed out that the cost of arresting, processing and jailing Melinda was far more than the value of the books she'd failed to return. The charges were eventually dropped, but Melinda had to spend money on bail, court fees and legal representation, all because she forgot to return The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe to the library. Number 1. The man arrested for eating too loudly at a restaurant. This is the most ridiculous case on our list, and it happened in 2018 in Sweden. But it's so absurd it deserves the number 1 spot. A man was eating soup at a restaurant when other diners complained that he was eating too loudly. The slurping and chewing sounds were apparently so disruptive that the restaurant manager asked him to leave. The man refused, saying he had paid for his meal and had every right to finish eating. An argument ensued and the manager called the police. When police arrived, they asked the man to leave. He still refused, insisting he was just eating his soup and hadn't done anything wrong. The police then arrested him for disturbing the peace and refusing to comply with a lawful order. The man spent several hours in police custody and was fined for his loud eating before being released. He later told media that he was simply enjoying his soup the way he always ate, and he couldn't believe he'd been arrested for the way he chewed his food. While this case didn't result in significant prison time, it's the perfect example of how petty and ridiculous arrests can be. The man literally got arrested for eating soup too loudly, not for threatening anyone, not for causing violence, just for making chewing sounds that annoyed other customers. The case sparked debates about when police intervention is appropriate and whether officers should be wasting time arresting people for minor social annoyances rather than focusing on actual crimes.